bright up here. Wow.
That's why I brought the hat this time. I know.
Are there people? Oh, there are.
Well, for the first question, the obligatory for this one, we'll go, I guess, left to right here. How did you first find your way into voice acting?
Is that a question? Who are you talking to?
We'll start with you. How did, I know you were an on-screen actor to begin with. How did you find your way into doing voice acting originally?
How did I become a voice actor?
Yes.
Well, I was always, I gotta shield myself here. Well, that's no good either. No, I was always a stage actor. And when I left New York and Washington, D.C., where I was in repertory, well, that took care of that.
I'll get it. You go ahead. I'll get it.
Thank you. See, I forgot I had a microphone. I was shouting. No, I was in theater in Washington, D.C. for 10 years. And then I left there and came out to California and started doing television and film and voices for commercials. And then one day I said to my agent, well, you know, I'd like to do a cartoon voice. He said, well, all right. So he sent me up for something to Hanna-Barbera. And my leg was in a cast because I had a knee operation. My wife drove me out there. So I met Joe Barbera, and we talked. And he said, well, there's a part of a dog that talks. Can you do that? And I went, oh, I can do that. He said, good, you start tomorrow. So my wife drove me back home, and she said, is this what you do for a living? And I said, yep. And I've been doing it for a living ever since. Then I worked for Filmation, which is where I did He-Man, Master of the Universe, Skeletor, Merman, Man-at-Arms, and Cringer, all in that one show. And then from there, I did maybe half a dozen other series at Filmation, Brave Star, and I don't even remember all of them. And then at Hanna-Barbera, I did the Smurfs for 9 years. That was Vanity Smurf. And Scooby-Doo, I did Scooby-Dum. And in between all of this, I was doing movies and television and series. And the last series I did was with Candice Bergen. You all can remember the name of it, I can't.
Murphy Brown?
What was that?
Was it Murphy Brown?
What'd you say?
Murphy Brown?
Murphy Brown is it. That was it. I did 3 years on that. I did 3 years on a soap opera called Passions. And I was on the $6 Million Man. I can't even remember all the stuff I did. Anyway, it's been a nice, long career, and I started doing this about 5 years ago, and it's wonderful. Weren't you Falcor also? I was Falcor. That's right, and Never-Ending Story. And the Rockbiter and Gamork in the Never-Ending Story. I've done a lot of stuff, haven't I? Thank you. Thank you.
I've done far less stuff than Alan. I was just a background actor in movies in the 90s, while at the same time I was writing and drawing and coloring comic books. And I met the creator of Invader Zim long before he ever did any Zim stuff. And he thought that there was a quality in my voice that sounded like this character Gur that he wanted. This was 1998, and he invited me to the audition. And I didn't understand that he was actually asking me to do this at first. I said, Are you asking me to audition? And he said, yes, I guess you couldn't screw it up any more than anyone else. And I thought, oh, that's nice, that's good. And he was right. I did not screw it up any more than anyone else, apparently. So I got the job, and I've been doing that since then, 98. So just a mix mash of characters and different shows, Mighty Magiswords, goats and chickens and other animals and children. Invader Zim, every pig in Invader Zim, that's me. If there's a pig, I'm your pig. Thank you. So basically, if it's not human, I guess, and if it's oinking and squeaking, and there you go. And then Gurr, people seem to like him. So that's good. There you go. Next person.
Cool. So, how I got into voice acting? Well, when I was little, I started out. I was 6 years old, and my mom I'm California, born and raised, and so my mom said, "Hey, you know what? My kid's weird. I want him to be an actor. Woohoo!" Her and like every other California mom, right? And so she would call up my school and say, "Hey, yeah, Zach is out sick with the flu." Oh, something's going on over there. Zach's out sick with the flu. He's really sick. He's going to die. He can't come to school this week. And then she would call up my agent and say, "All right, we're getting Zach booked for auditions. Let's go. We got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday." And she would just go on and just get me booked to like a bunch of on-camera auditions. I did commercial work. I did a bunch of print work. After a while, though, she realized I wasn't really enjoying it because at that young of an age, I didn't really know what I was doing. I wasn't really inspired by it or anything like that. I thought it was kind of fun. So she took me out of it. Years go by. I'm like 12 or 13 years old. I'm playing a game called Kingdom Hearts 2, which is one of my favorite games. And so I was like watching the voice actors in that game. I said, you know what? This would be so cool if I got back into acting, but I did voiceover specifically. And so I took a bunch of voice acting classes. And later on, as time kind of went on for me trying to get into the industry, I ended up winning a voice acting competition at Anime Expo in 2014. So ever since then, everything kind of snowballed. I played a character called Slain in an anime called Alt Noah Zero. And then things kind of went on from there. I played Genos and Byleth, and everything just kind of like, it kept going. Now I'm here.
Yeah,
Thank you.
So I didn't have my eye on voice acting at all initially. I was trained for musical theater and opera when I was in high school, and then was away from like all forms of acting for a good like 6-7 years. I studied Japanese in college, and I worked as a translator in Tokyo, and I came back, and my partner Michael Tatum, you may know him. He was encouraging me to like, oh, you should act again. And so I started doing professional stage work in Dallas, did a bunch of musicals. And then one day, the director of Black Butler, Ian Sinclair, called me and said, hey, I'm having some trouble or the translator for Black Butler is having some trouble with this dialect in Japanese. Can I send it to you? And I was like, sure, okay, whatever, Ian. And so I looked through it, and it was for Black Butler Book of Circus, the 3rd season. The character is Joker, by the way. And so I looked at it, and I'm like, what is this? This is clearly a dialect. I can understand it, but there's like weird word endings and stuff. So I found the answer on Yahoo Answers Japan. It was a performer's dialect from Osaka that originated from a specific street in the mid-1800s. And I was like, here you go, Ian. He was like, awesome. Cool. I've seen your work on stage and stuff. You want to come in and just like voice all the cats? I was like, I feel you on the animals thing. And it's like, the cats? Sure. He thought it would be funny because Michael voices Sebastian. He was like, well, Sebastian hates everything except for cats, and that's fitting. So come on in. So I did that, and then he was like, do you have a British accent? I've got this character in this movie I'm trying to cast. And so I auditioned for it, and then I heard back, and that's how I got started. And and kind of went from there. And then since then, I've done. I picked up an agent and have been submitting for like video games and stuff like that, and have gotten a bunch of really random jobs since then, which have been nice, right? I think all of us can agree.
Right.
Awesome.
So if we have any questions, if you want to line up.
Light it up, light it up, light it up, I'm on fire.
Please sing all questions.
Sing all the questions.
Sing all questions.
This one is for Rikki. What is your favorite Gurr quote?
My favorite Gurr quote. Are you an Invader Zim fan? Is that what's happening? I can't see you. Where are you? Oh, there you are. You're in green. Hello. My favorite Gurr quote is from the movie. It's, I ate a baby there.
Perfect.
You're welcome. Thank you.
There we go. What's the, and this is for all of you, what's the worst and best part about voice acting?
For me, the worst part is scheduling. Anyone else hate scheduling? I hate scheduling. And the best is getting to live 1,000 lives and 1,000 experiences and sharing it with people.
Yeah, I think for me, have you ever had one of those directors where sometimes they're really trying to get you to say something a certain way? I've once said the word whirlpool probably like 100 times because the guy's like, you're not saying whirlpool, you're saying like whirlpool or something. I'm like, I'm saying whirlpool. Hey, so what about the whirlpool? What about the whirlpool? What about the whirlpool? Hey, did we get it? And then they ended up using the first take.
And you do it so many times it ceases to have any meaning whatsoever.
I know, I'm like, whirlpool.
I would say the worst part is not getting the job when you audition for it. Although it used to be harder, you used to put a lot more effort into getting the job a long time ago. Now you submit your audition through email. Before you had to get in your car and you had to drive down to a studio and you had to find the studio in a map, like paper map. And then you have to find then you don't know what the studio looks like if you haven't been there before, especially if it's a new one. And sometimes those studios look like a garage or somebody's basketball court or whatever. They're just weird places. And then you go in there and then you do everything wrong and then you don't get it. And then you just drove through all of Los Angeles to do it. So now it's a little bit easier, but it still can be disappointing when you don't get it. The nicest thing is when you do. Hooray!
Thank you.
Alan, do you have a best and worst as far
No,
as?
no, there's no worst part, there's no best part. It all comes together. The best part is doing the work with people who you have great respect for, and you run off of each other and play off of each other in the best possible way. I think the worst part might be if you're working with somebody and that actor doesn't listen. He's concentrating on what he's going to say. So his answer to you is not really an answer to you. He's in his own world somewhere. That's kind of hard to work with.
I have a question for Skeletor. Where did you get that voice and all the ranting and the cuss you and all that? Where does that come from? How that evolved?
Where does what come from?
The Skeletor voice. Where?
Skeletor, because he got a bony head.
Yeah.
So I made it up in here, nasal, see? And I did it like that. The laugh was an accident. I'd had no idea. Maybe the second or third show, maybe I laughed nervously or something, and I went, oh, let's keep that in, you see. So that became really the signature of Skeletor. I'll tell you a little story. My wife and I were traveling in South America a few years ago, and we had a driver and a guide. So the guide asked me what I did. I said I was an actor. The driver said, ask him what he did. So she said to me, what movies did you do? And I told her, and she translated it as best she could into Spanish. He didn't know. He'd never seen him. So I said to her, ask him if he watched cartoons. So she said, did you watch cartoons? He went, yeah. So I went, whoa. He hit the right curb. Same thing happened in Buenos Aires. Different driver, same reaction. So Skeletor's laugh became universal.
It's a good one. I love his rants.
Thank you.
It's fun.
Did you just say something?
Thank you.
Gotcha.
Hi, I have a question for all of you. What's the most emotional scene you've had to voice act?
Ooh, well, I feel very on topic right now. The most recent one in My Hero. I'm not going to spoil it, but if you know, you know. I know, heartbreak.
I think recently something that comes to mind, I don't know if it's the most, it was episode 19 of Demon Slayer, because I play Tanjiro. So yeah, it's just such a beautiful episode, and the animation, and then you got Nezuko, and I don't know, I just remember going in, working on that specific episode, and I was like, I really want to do a good job on this too, and they're playing the music for me through my headphones while we're recording it, and I'm like, man, like this is, this is making me tear up.
Emotional? Have you seen my characters? They're like I guess the most desperate would be, like emotionally desperate would be that I played a Bigfoot baby who didn't want to be captured, and he was like, leave me alone. I'm a regular kid. I just want to eat grubs. And that sounded very desperate to me, so.
I never had an emotional character. Maybe Cringer, who whined all the time. I don't know, make me do that, I don't want to do that. I never had an emotional character. I just did comedy.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question for all of you. I was wondering how you feel about voice emulation software and how or when or if you think that's going to affect the industry.
It's gonna take all of our jobs. We gotta go out. We gotta figure it out. We gotta destroy it right now. It's like Skynet coming for us, right? Like we will be destroyed, but we have to destroy them before they destroy us. We are in the past right now. Boom, go destroy this. I'm totally BS. I don't know.
Who's the John Connor in this situation?
I don't know about this thing. What are you talking about? Is this something else I have to worry?
That can be programmed to
No,
mimic a
I don't
human
want to
voice.
think about it. I'm
It's not
already
very good
worrying
yet.
about my cat. I don't know.
So I have a background in IT as well, so I've been reading about this, and I have opinions about it, and I think that, yes, we are always moving forward from a technological standpoint, and it helps move our society forward, but the very human element of collaboration will never, ever be replaced by computers. Yes, I'm sure at some... Oh, thank you. Thank you. I'm sure at some point we will reach the levels of this technology where inflection can be modified, and accent and regional dialects and things like that. But what it cannot emulate is bouncing ideas off of a director, bouncing ideas off of other actors, and that very organic process can never be recreated by computers, I think.
Yeah,
That's a really good answer. Thank you.
Oh,
that is a really
Thanks for
good
the question.
answer. I'm like, they will try, but they will fail.
Absolutely.
Hello.
Hi.
This is for Zach. I have two questions. One, what's your favorite version of Echoes? And two, what's your favorite Koichi quote?
So my favorite is Echoes Act 3, and I'm sure you know the line. I don't know if I can say it because it's kind of let's kill the.
Okay, Master. Let's go the.
Yes, you know the line, but that is my favorite one. So I can't.
you.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi. I have two questions for all of you, if I can remember them. The first question was, as a voice actor, you work with all the other voice actors. Do you like working with them, and who was your favorite to work with?
Oh.
Is that two questions or is that one?
That's two questions.
Okay. No, that's good.
I said it wrong.
You did a good job.
Thank you.
I liked working with Richard Horowitz on Invader Zim because he's a very sweet man. I've never worked with a voice actor yet that I didn't enjoy working with. Everyone's always been really great. And the thing I really like about voice acting is that it feels like a remote office. Like I go somewhere and I see the same friends over and over again. Phil Lamar over here and Richard over there and Dana Snyder and here and it's great. And then we go away and like a month later it happens again or a week later. And they're always so good at what they do that you then get really excited to work with them and you can't wait to interact. So.
Yeah, so it's a little different situation, I think, for Zach and I, because a lot of the work we do is in anime, which
By ourselves.
I know, by ourselves. It's ADR, automated dialogue replacement, which means we have it in Japanese already, and in order for it to be able to be mixed effectively, we have to record isolated, completely alone. If you're the first person to record on that project, you are recording into a vacuum.
It's horrible.
So you have to really generate everything yourself and throw everything you have at it. You do have the original Japanese performance, but when you record, actually do the take, if you're the first one, it's all you. Now, if other actors have recorded, you get a little bit of prelay, like 5 seconds before, and so you get to hear that if someone else has done it. But so I think most of our experience is like who do we enjoy working with the most? Probably directors. I wish we got to
Yes.
work with other actors more often in the booth, but so like recently I've really enjoyed working with Cliff Chapin, who's the voice of Bakugo, but he's also the director of Dr. Stone, and Colleen Klinkenbeard, who's the voice director for the dub of My Hero.
I didn't know that one.
Yeah, I think I guess like that's the thing is that I have done some prelay sessions, and I will say I love the collaboration.
fun, right?
It is so much fun working with other actors in the booth. In terms of directors, I mean, I've worked with like so many crazy. I've worked with Wendy Lee. I've worked with Patrick Seitz on Fire Emblem.
Patrick Seitz is amazing.
Yeah, he was the director for Fire Emblem, so he was really cool to work with. He's probably one of my favorite people. So.
Alan, you must work with some icons of the business. When you work for Hanna-Barbera, you must work with some of the icons of the voice acting business.
Well, yeah, I mean, I worked with Mel Blanc when I was at Hanna-Barbera, and Paul Winchell. I don't know if that name means anything to you, but he was a ventriloquist and an inventor. He was a brilliant man. We had great fun together. Michael Bell, whom I'm sure you all know, and Michael and, Hamilton Camp. Oh, gee, so many great people. I don't do it much anymore. I've been replaced by these young squirts. So I don't do it much anymore. And the names that I would come up with probably don't mean anything to you. But if I were to say some of the great screen actors that I worked with, like my favorite George C. Scott or Doris Day or Jimmy Stewart, those people that I just adored working with. They were so genuine and giving and kind and talented. And those are the guys on my wall, and Jack Benny.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm good.
Hi, this is a question for all of you. If you compare it to roles that you've done before, what would you have to say is the hardest emotion for you to convey when you're working?
Maybe it's like, I guess it depends on what you're working on. If it's something cinematic, I really love working on video games that are super, super cinematic, just raw emotion. But I think it's hard sometimes when you're doing a voice and your character is also supposed to be, I guess for me, it's just like really, really sad, maybe more like sobbing. And it's because you don't want to make it sound like laughing, and it's supposed to be, sadness, so sometimes it can sound like that. So I think to be able to do a voice and also convey intense sobbing, which I know it doesn't happen a lot, right? But for sometimes I've had some scenes where I'm like, oh, let me do that again. He sounds a little too happy.
Interesting. That's wild. That's really intriguing to me because I feel like I got sadness down pat. Mine is anger.
Really?
To have all the different shades of anger in it is the one I struggle with the most.
I'm just happy to have words instead of mooing and all the other animal noises. But when I get a script and it actually has dialogue, I'm pretty excited. So it doesn't matter what it is, weeping, crying, screaming, yay, words.
That's funny. You make it real, just fake it.
Alan, I know you said your characters didn't really get emotional, but were there any characters that you struggled to master the voice of?
What was that?
Were there any characters that you struggled to master the voice?
No, I don't think so. I look at a cell, a drawing or whatever, and immediately I get, if I don't, I was doing a play at the Mark Taper, and I never could get a handle on that character. I just couldn't make sense out of it. The director tried to help me. So after 2 weeks, as we were about to go into rehearsal, I said to him, I think I've been miscast. He threw his arms around me. He said, I was going to hold off a couple of days longer before I told you the same thing. So we parted amicably. I went to see the play when somebody else did it. He never got it either. It was just crappy writing. Fake it.
This is for Zach. So, for voicing Byleth, what was your favorite part, and what were some of the hard things you had with it? How long did you get the script ahead of time?
Right. So technically, I just went in, and that's when I got the script. So I did not get it ahead of time. The hardest part was probably just going through like all the screaming, because there's just a lot of like, "Ah!" you know, like like so all those sorts of things, and then they have you do like light. They do like the light, like, and then they do medium, and then you do heavy, which I'm not gonna destroy myself.
Love yourself.
Yeah, but it was tough probably just kind of going through all that, doing all those like really kind of tense vocal lines, and then we would go back sometimes and do even some dialogue lines. And
afterwards?
Yeah. So because I don't think they were realizing it, I'm like, oh, this is taking a toll. All right, let's try to do the dialogue lines all first.
That's so rough, though.
Yeah, no, but it wasn't that bad though, because I mean,
That's good.
yeah, my character's dialogue lines are more like ... and he makes grunts, so he's just like and that's it.
Oh, good.
Yeah,
Good.
so it's not a lot, but yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but yeah, thank you.
So my question is for everyone. What kind of character, if you could voice any character, anime or cartoon, what character would it be? Like, it can be anything in the past or something that is new. Like, what kind of character or what character?
I mean, somebody has asked me this question before, and I instantly am like, Sasuke Uchiha from Naruto. And yeah, or like Light from Death Note. I remember, do you remember that? Like,
Yeah.
I think, what's his name? Brad did it, and he's like, I'll take a potato chip. And eat it! And I love Death Note. It's one of my favorites, so I mean, that'd be cool.
I'd really like to explore more like really ridiculous, extreme character voices, because that's something that we, surprisingly, I don't get to do all the time in anime, which is weird to say out loud, but that's just the state of affairs, I guess. Yeah.
I missed the question. I dropped my cough drop, but.
If you could voice any character, anime or cartoon, what kind of character, who would it be?
Oh, any of them. All the characters, all of them. I wouldn't turn down a work.
I have no opinion on that, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Where does your favorite line from anything that you've done?
I ate a baby there.
Allow me to demonstrate.
I have to give backstory for this. I'm so sorry. And my first lead was a show called Gamers, and in it, the main character has been set up on a date with this girl that he really, really likes, and she's really like confident and forward, and she's wearing this bathing suit there at this water park, and she comes up and she's like, "Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Hey," and he's like, "Oh God, hi," and she's put a lot of work into this outfit, and she's like, you're not gonna say anything? You don't like, don't I look amazing? Like, say something. And he looks up and he goes, looking good, champ. It's like my favorite thing I've ever said.
Alan, do you have a favorite line?
Well, I had a lot of insults as Skeletor, you know. And one of my favorites is, I could write a book about what you don't know.
Thank you.
How y'all doing, fellas?
Good.
Good.
I just started my LLC last month, Weatherford Entertainment. Sorry to name drop there, but really just trying to get into the media field and bring that culture into Richmond more, because we have a lot of art and a lot of talent. I wanted to know what, I guess, tips and tricks would y'all give someone like myself who's just starting out? I mean, I didn't even know how to get a press pass here, so I got a lot to learn. So if y'all could give me some tips, it'd be huge.
Tips to do what?
Get into the media field, like just to get your name, like how y'all grew y'all's brand, really.
I think the landscape has changed immensely, especially in the past 10, 15 years, right? With starting with YouTube and now like all these different channels, TikTok, things like that. And so if you're in media, that's great. There's never been a better time to be in media with the rise of the internet and how we share entertainment. So I think the key is judiciously producing content, whatever that may be. Like, find something and stick with it. And, you learn while you go. I've been getting into music production over the past, 3-4 years, and I'm learning constantly. And I think the key is if you're starting an LLC and you are the master of your own universe in this sense, there becomes a strong sense of responsibility that you have to have the gumption to keep going. It's easy to stop, but keep making content. That's my suggestion.
I really appreciate that. Y'all have a great one.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Okay, this is a question for everyone. I was wondering, what is the most connection with you had with any character you voice acted? How can you relate to that person and why you like them so much or them?
So my character Koichi in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, so there's this scene, and it's so funny. There's this guy on Twitter who keeps messaging me about this, and he won't stop. Please stop. If you're out there somewhere. So I'm from Los Angeles, right? And in Los Angeles, we have something called horrible traffic. And so sometimes I will drink a lot of water, during my voiceover session, and then I'm like, okay, bye, guys, going home. I signed my contract, I'm leaving, and then, turns out it's rush hour. Turns out it's going to take me 2 hours to go home. I just drank a lot of water. And so my character Koichi, there is one scene where he has to pee really bad, and he's and I don't know, he's just holding his pants, and he's trying to turn this doorknob or something, but the bathroom door is jammed, and he's just and he just cannot get in there. And so basically, long story short, that is how I feel while driving in LA when I have to pee, because there is no where am I gonna go? Oh, you try to go into a gas station, they don't have bathrooms because they have to maintain them for the health department or something, and so sometimes they don't want to maintain it, so they can't have public bathrooms. Only employees can use them or something. So yeah, it's sucked. That's it.
Starbucks now lets everyone use their bathrooms. Just next time, just map up those Starbuckses.
I know, but then they try to get you to enter the code. Yes, would you buy a $5 coffee? I'm like, I don't need any more coffee. I gotta pee already. Let me in the room.
So Sir Night-Eye in My Hero Academia was written as he's supposed to be the Japanese counterpart to All Might, right? Mm-hmm. And he's a Japanese salaryman. And I worked at a Japanese company for a little over a year in Akihabara. And so I related to him. I related with the grind and rush hour and all these things. And so that's me.
I play idiots mostly, so it's fine.
Let's move along.
Okay. Thank you.
So I've got two questions. My first is for Alan. Where'd you come up with the inspiration for Warpath from G1 Transformers, the tank?
I was copying my darling friend George C. Scott. I stole from him. It's like that. So you wham, bam. I worked with him on a movie called The Hindenburg, and he was the kindest man. And we really hit it off, and I just love to hear that voice, And so I copy people who I admire, I was working with Jackie Mason. You know Jackie Mason, the comic? Yeah. I was doing a series, and I was a guest on it, and we're doing a scene, and Jackie Mason was talking to me like this, and so I found myself talking to him like this. He said, wait a minute, I'm doing that voice, not you. So I pick up the voice very often of the person I'm working with. I did the same thing with Sheldon Leonard. Sheldon Leonard has, he talked like that all the time, like that. He produced a lot of shows, including I Spy, which was my first big lead. So then he got a series where he's back to acting called Big Eddie, and I played his brother. So the first day we're at a table read, and Sheldon starts talking like this, and I found I was talking to him like that too. He said, wait a minute, hold on, why do I sense a loss of identity? It's very hard for me. I pick up, I'll steal from anybody without even knowing it.
And my second part was, can you discuss any role that you didn't get, like a failure, and then how you came back from that, or what you did when you lost out on a role?
Oh, probably so. Yeah, probably. I've been fired from a few roles, but they honored the handshake, so they paid me off. What was the beginning of that question? A role that what?
Just like a failure, a role that you wanted, that you auditioned for, you didn't get, and how
Oh, hell yes, that happens all the time. I was up for the original Hamlet, but they gave it to somebody else. But it was 1600, I didn't look as good as I do now.
Thank you.
Hello?
Hi.
About like 24 people kept taking the questions I had, so I have two backups, and I'm going to ask them both. The first one, are there any roles that you've played, this is for everybody, that you've played that you either didn't relate to at first, but as things went on, you began to understand that character more, or vice versa, you understood them at first, but as the process went on, you began to not really relate to who that character became?
I'd like to grab that one because I think that's a great question. If you watch the first year of what turned out to be a hit show, like Bonanza or any of those, you watch those actors really are kind of flat. They haven't found the character yet. And as the show went on, you watch the second, third, fourth year, then they developed a character that you really like and identify with. But the first year is hell. You're trying to find yourself, and then very often you'll come up with something, and the writers will seize on that and write for that quality that you've brought into that reading. And that's what happens when you're in a show that's run for a while. Do you know that I Love Lucy was almost canceled the first year? Can you believe that? Then they found themselves, because the first year was all about her wanting to go into business with Desi Arnaz. Well, you play that out pretty fast. And then they wrote these other things where she worked so well with everybody. But I'm thinking of Bonanza and so, oh God, I played a Mexican mayor on that show. I did 3 episodes in 1 year, all different characters. I played a Mexican mayor in one of them. And I came out and rehearsed, and I'd worked with all these extras and other shows, and so I started doing the part, and I'm reading the rehearsal and all, and they start to laugh. I said, "Is something wrong with the accent?" No, it's just we've worked with you, never seen you doing that kind of an accent. So I watched the show. I looked like a New Yorker in dark makeup. The accent was good, but nobody bought it. But the real secret is what I said at the beginning. You develop the character, the more you play with it and play with the other people, and the directors and the writers pick up on whatever you're bringing to it, and they start to write in that vein for you. Yeah.
Wow, that's so cool. I wish we could have that experience in anime. We don't, so that's amazing.
No, you're stuck.
To expand on that, it's like a visual version of what he just said is like, look at art. Like if somebody's making a comic book series, like look at the original Garfield. He's like a mush ball. Like he's like the original Garfield was just this lumpy cat thing, and now he's like refined. He's got circle eye, and he's exactly that. That happens as you develop a character. Like Alan was saying that it tightens up and it becomes a thing after a while, just like a better Garfield.
The second one was just, have you ever had an experience where you have to record and the director and no one else is there, but you, no one else is in the studio where you are, and you have to record it and just send it somewhere? And how is it?
I mean, maybe for auditions, but even then, usually I'm in my home studio. Because there's never a director there. I gotta read all the context. I gotta figure out what the character's motives are and what's going on. There's not really anybody to ask a question. I mean, if I ask my agent, he'd probably just say, "Well, did you read the sides?" So, I mean, other than that, I've never had an experience. There's always a director or an engineer there to at least give me some sort of guidance, saying, "All right, let's try this, let's do that. Maybe we can, figure out some sort of way to collaborate."
The most remote I ever had was I did a video game, and the people who created the game were in Australia. I was in Los Angeles, and they were up way past their bedtime, through satellite telling me what to do. But there were still engineers in the booth with me and stuff. So
I have actually, but it's super rare in anime work at least. You should never be on your own ever recording for something that's going to go to broadcast. You really shouldn't. But this is a special case. It was for a show that I had done for a while, and it was the last episode, and there was the studio was totally overbooked and had to get 100 hours of recording in a single week, which is just ridiculous. And so I talked to them, and I was like, hey, for certain things, do you want me to just get pickups on my own? And they said yes, and they sent it. But that shouldn't happen.
Thank you.
Hi. My name's Matt.
Hey, Matt.
I want to ask, what's it like to have to read a comedic scene and fight laughter to not ruin the take?
I just do it. I just laugh. But I've been lucky because my characters are idiots. So
I have on a show called Nambaka, where the writing is amazing and hilarious. It's really hard to not laugh through some of those lines in that show.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. JoJo's was weird. Recording all that show. It's so funny because this was the one show I didn't really watch. I had a lot going on during that point in time of recording and stuff, so I didn't entirely know what was going to happen in the episode. And so the director's like, yeah, this episode you die the next episode, and you step in dog poop, and then somebody's coming out of a wall to destroy your world. And I'm like, what is happening?
Oh, anime.
Oh, anime. So there's a lot of funny moments and whatnot. If I did laugh, we would just have to do another take until
it's not a big deal
until we get it.
the thing that makes me laugh the most is watching the other actors on a comedy with me, because when you're acting, you're not just standing in front of the mic. You're convulsing and everything. And I, there's especially Invader Zim, man. I tried. My wife will sometimes go with on some of those recording sessions, and she'll video what we're all doing, and she has some great video of Richard Horvitz just spasming, just like his head's gonna fly off. It's great. It's really good stuff, and it's really hard not to laugh. Sometimes he's in an isolation booth, so even though we're recording together, I can laugh, and they're not picking it up, and it's good because he's amazing.
And that's why they put him in the isolation booth.
Well, I've done on television or movie where we had to cut the scene. We laughed so hard we just couldn't get it. And then one time I was recording with Mel Blanc, and I was sitting next to him, and I got sprayed real good when he went, whoa. So I guess they used it because it didn't matter about the laugh, but I sure got wet.
Thank you.
One more. Oh, wrap it up? Okay. We're wrapping it up.
Okay.
You guys have been great. Appreciate having all of you here and
Thank
answering
you.
the questions for everyone.
Thank
We're going to do
Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah.